Good day to you all, I'm the Squire, and welcome to something unique for this channel. This is going to be different from your usual pondering games where, you know, I usually take a piece of news, reflect on it, and predict or ponder what's to come with the topic related at hand. But with this topic in particular, I think I needed a bit of help this time around. So I've brought a few of my friends on board to help me out with this discussion, as we are going to talk about Nintendo beyond 2023, or 2023, whatever floats your boat. Now, with me, I have quite a few guests. Let's start with a familiar face of this channel, a good friend of mine, and recently shouted out by H-Bomber Guy, Jenny Geist. How are you, my friend?
Hello, I'm happy to be here. I'm doing well. Got a bunch going on with the new year, but I'm glad to make time for this.
It's always wonderful to hear from you, of course. Next up, we have manga letterer extraordinaire that is co-host of the renowned podcast One Piece at a Time. We have Mr. Brandon Bovia. How are you, my good friend?
Howdy, doing pretty good. Usually on YouTube talking about One Piece, so being able to talk about Nintendo games for a change will be pretty fun. Looking forward to it.
Yes, of course. And of course, we have a new face, very wonderful illustrator, very talented artist, and a good friend of mine. We have Nuttyinks. How are you doing, Steven?
I'm doing pretty good. I draw, currently doing a lot of prep for a webcomic, but I do dabble in Nintendo games every once in a while, so I was asked to join.
Of course, I think that's why we're all here. So, everyone, how about I tell you about Nintendo's past year real quick? Just a quick primer, what they've done, and what that indicates for their momentum. So, as of November 2023, the Nintendo Switch has sold 132.5 million units of hardware and 1.13 billion units of software. It is currently the third highest selling console behind the DS and PS2 respectively, and more than 330 Nintendo accounts have been made. Now, other notable outings for Nintendo this year, the Super Mario Bros. Movie has grossed over 1.36 billion. That is the highest of any game adaptation, second only to Frozen 2. Next up, we have Super Nintendo World and Universal Studio Parks opening for the United States, and a Donkey Kong expansion is coming to the Japanese park next year. We also, of course, had Charles Martinet stepping down from voicing Mario and other characters within that universe. A live-action Legend of Zelda film has been announced to be in development. That was a hell of a surprise. And finally, not many people are stoked about this. I am actually low-key excited about this. A Nintendo museum will finish construction in Uji City, Kyoto in March. So, quite a bit.
Yeah, so much momentum right now. Oh, it's just like we got the movie, we have another movie coming for another series, we have basically annual theme park things opening between the Hollywood one this year, the Donkey Kong expansion next year, the Epic Universe Park next year, and probably Mario sequels. It really feels like there's momentum in every aspect of Nintendo, with the one exception where we don't know what's going on with games that much.
I feel like this is the first generation, maybe ever, maybe since, I don't know, the NES, where Nintendo has ended a generation with momentum. So that kind of is a unusual spot for them to be in. It's exciting and it's great, but it does sort of oh, this is kind of, we're in unprecedented territory, which I think is going to make thinking about 2024 really exciting.
It's really just, with the momentum that they have going forward, it kind of makes it hard to predict what is coming next, and really what I could see for anything in the future from any of the movies, theme park, or games.
They're definitely living up to that ordinance, to put in Animal Crossing terms. They're really living up to that ordinance to become more multimedia, as we're seeing. And Brandon really touched on a good point. Yeah, no, it's funny when you think about it, because going into the Super Nintendo generation, you had the Nintendo World Tournament. You had a very bad Mario movie. Before the Super Nintendo, that's before Sega really wanted to go up to bat. And then when you get into the Super Nintendo, that's when PlayStation's like, we heard what you're doing, we're making our own console. And then Microsoft joined the picture, so like every console generation, like after the NES, has been met with new challenges. But Nutty did touch upon the future, and in terms of the Switch itself, we know a very small amount of stuff. It's a decent chunk of what to expect in terms of first-party content. But what we have in store for next year, or 2024, I should say, is Princess Peach Showtime, Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, which, you know, I'm still a little salty it's not the first one, Mario vs. Donkey Kong Remake, Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door Remake, Another Code Recollection, and Splatoon 3 Side Order. Oh, and of course I cannot forget Metroid Prime 4 as well.
Well, you could just say, like, with Another Code, like, Recollection, it's just, like, the third remake on this list of things. Because it's getting I feel like a lot of us can say that, like, there's the discussion to have that, the Switch is starting to look like in the last couple years of the 3DS, where a lot of the stuff was remakes with very, like, original, like, small original projects sprinkled in between.
Yeah, totally.
Ever since they announced Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, I've been saying, like, you do not make a remake of Luigi's Mansion 2 if you have nothing, if you don't have a new console coming. Like, that is the epitome of a late in a console's life game, if there ever was one.
They announced it a year and a half ahead of time.
Yeah, it's almost like that you can make parallels with the end of the 3DS, honestly. Like, you have a Mario RPG remake, except this one's way more exciting because it's Thousand Year Door, not Superstar Saga, which didn't really need it. And then you have, like, a remake of a GBA game randomly with Mario vs. Donkey Kong. You have DLC.
A really budget one remake.
Yeah, like,
if we're going to talk about how Mario Donkey Kong looks.
The only one of these that are, like, big budget projects are, like, Peach Showtime, which we don't know anything about. We don't know who's making it. We don't know what the target demographic of that's going to be. We don't know much about it yet. And then Thousand Year Door, which is awesome, but it's a remake, so.
And then also in the sense of, like, with Side Order as well for Splatoon 3 is that, like, it was pushed back into 2024. So, like, it was supposed to come, like, I think originally they were saying something about, like, the entire expansion pass for Splatoon 3 being out by the end of 2023, and then it just got pushed back to 2024, so.
Which I'm okay with. I think Splatoon story modes are, like, my favorite parts of each Splatoon game. So if they're expanding upon that and, like, pushing it into 2024, I'm down for that.
It feels like with Prime 4, its newsfeed has been like a sonar radar ever since it restarted development. Because every direct you've had, development's going fine, here's Dread. Development's going fine, here's Prime Remastered. And I felt like these past two directs were like a good time to like finally showcase 4 proper. But to my surprise, we got both Mario Wonder and the Thousand Year Door, and I do think the sheer volume of Mario-related content is something to note about this selection of games going into this year. That, to me, yes, Jenny, I agree. That tells me that it does remind me of the 3DS's Twilight years. And, you know, you look back at the Wii U, where it was essentially a parched desert. You had Twilight Princess HD, you had Star Fox Zero, which I will fight for that game, but then at November you had Paper Mario Color Splash, and then you had Breath of the Wild, of course. But Breath of the Wild, let's not kid ourselves here. Majority of us played that on the Switch.
I played it on Wii U for.
Me too.
I love my Wii U, baby. It's still plugged in, but being in that last year of the Wii U, man,
Also, you forgot Tokyo Mirage Sessions.
Did that come out the same year?
2016. Yeah.
Oh, Lord. At least, like, the Switch is going out more with a bang than...
It might be the best final year.
Oh, I mean,
If
it's got
it's the
Tears of the
final year,
Kingdom.
who knows?
It's got, like, what's nice is that we have, like, an ending. Like, Tears of the Kingdom is very much the end of this era of Zelda. Like, and the next game, I'm sure, will also be, like, open air and stuff, but it's not going to be the same high roller characters or anything. But like we also have new beginnings. Like Mario Wonder is this new beginning for 2D Mario. Pikmin 4 is making that series much larger than it used to be. And even like Mario RPGs are back now thanks to the spin-offs, and like it does feel like a good transition year. Like we're kind of building up to what the Switch 2 is going to be like with a lot of our releases this year.
And without going into like spoilers or anything, but like also like with bigger RPGs as well, like with Fire Emblem and Engage this last year, like that was a big celebration of like the last couple years of Fire Emblem, but now fans are kind of like, where's this series going? And then Xenoblade, like with 3 and its expansion, just
It does feel like a new era for a lot of Nintendo franchises. It does feel like they're
even
pushing
Splatoon,
ahead.
like side order is probably going to be like not like a last hurrah for Splatoon 3. I'm sure it'll still get content, but it's probably going to be the last substantial content. It really does feel like they're wrapping some things up and starting some new things for the future.
Mario Kart too. It finally wrapped
Yeah.
up its
Yeah.
Boost Pass.
how did we forget about Mario Kart?
Oh, we're gonna get to Mario Kart, I assure you. But I think one step at a time here. I think, speaking of transitions, we should get into what we can expect to see from them following the quick winter break and diving into early spring, where the fiscal year starts anew for Nintendo. So, usually every year we expect a winter, early spring Nintendo Direct. Sometimes at the very tail end of January, usually in February, and in a few instances in March. Now, I don't want to talk about the time period of when we'll see this Direct necessarily, but rather, what are we looking at in terms of a post-2023 Nintendo Direct? Because I'm going to be blunt here. With what we have and what we don't know, I genuinely couldn't tell you what we could see in terms of new first-party announcements.
I think we might be done, honestly.
Oh, wow.
Like I think I'm not necessarily like willing to put my full weight behind this theory, but I think we will get like a partner direct, or that like
That's good.
like any directs that we do get will be fairly third party heavy, fairly like port remaster heavy. Because like I think at this point, anything that first party that we get, like, just by definition can't be huge. It can't be some huge showstopper because, you know, assuming that we do have a console launch, you know, coming in 2024. So it's like, I feel like it makes it hard to make a direct with like one big selling point to rally around.
I agree. I actually think that we are going to have a February direct like we usually do, but it's going to be a mini, and it's maybe going to like have like a Splatoon 3 side order release date. Maybe they'll have a demo for the Peach game, like release dates for Luigi's Mansion and Paper Mario. I think the only thing I could see being like in a new direct is like a Twilight Princess Wind Waker HD collection as like a new thing, because that's an easy remake that they could just, if it's a while till the console comes out, you could just throw that into one of the filler months and that would easily sell 1 million.
And I'm glad you brought that up, Jenny, because one of my things is, if you're going to make anything that's not super huge, like if you're not ready to show off Prime 4, if you really want to save that as a cross-gen title, if you're not ready to show off like the next new 3 Mario, or like, I don't know, Kid Icarus Uprising remaster, that'd be pretty cool. No, you'd want to lead with like ports and remasters, like, hey, what did we leave behind from the Wii U, if anything at all, and is it feasible to carry on over to help sustain this month, or this month here?
Just say Xenoblade X.
Damn.
Just say Xenoblade X. It's like, what did we leave on the Wii U? I don't know. It must not have been important.
I just want Wind Waker in 60 frames. Wind Waker in 60 frames. It looks so beautiful.
It will be the Zelda games in bit, because Zelda's like a yearly series at this point. So I think like if you want a game for next year, like have these two, you could like bundle them together for $60, kind of like you did with 3 All-Stars. And Xenoblade X, I feel like that's the kind of thing, I mean, I don't want to get too ahead of this, but that's the kind of thing I think you put on the Switch too, because it already barely ran on the Wii U. You had to like install packs to make it run better on the Wii U. I think that's the thing where you could make it excel on a new console rather than having to make it barely run on the Switch either.
What I initially thought was going to happen after we saw Prime Remastered is we were going to get a slow build-up with 2 and 3 eventually later down the line that leads into 4. because now we're at an interesting. We saw how the entire Pikmin series is on Switch now, and it made me think with one like we could see 2 and 3 a little bit later, and then lead into 4. But yeah, no, it is an interesting position where Prime 4 is in this state of limbo, where it's like you don't know when it will show up next year, but it will show up sometime next year. It's just a matter of when.
Oh, totally.
Schrodinger's Prime 4.
It's been 5 years since they restarted development, so I don't think it's too far fetched to say we're going to see it next
Good
year.
God.
Like 5 to 6 years is pretty standard for game development these days. So
I'm not even a Prime fan. I'm not even like I've never played the Prime games, and even I'm like, all right, where's Prime 4?
Oh, just a quick little like side note about Xenoblade X is that like because I think it is like a full Wii U Blu-ray disc without the data pack. So I think with the data packs, I think that game is actually like 32 gigabytes.
Yeah,
which might be why they're holding it.
I needed a flash drive for that.
Before the eShop closed, I downloaded the data packs. It took like 3 hours to download 10 gigs onto my Wii U
so you're kind of
for just the data packs.
stuck in a situation where and I promise I won't spend too much time on this point, but like you're either stuck in a situation where like they're holding it for the Switch 2, which will maybe ship with like a higher base internal storage, or maybe some kind of like manufacturing whatever, where like using that expensive of a physical Switch cart, like they would, like that's probably at least one reason why like Tears of the Kingdom was $70, and I don't think they can get away with selling a remaster of Xenoblade X for $70. As much as I probably still would buy it for $70, it would be a hard sell for most people.
Oh right, you guys are all American, so I'm sitting here as a Canadian being like, man, I wish my games were only $70.
Yeah.
it's the punishment you must pay for being Canadian.
Like almost,
how dare you?
Almost $90 for a full like priced Switch game.
Speaking of full-priced games, something that tends to happen in the winter is Pokemon, and that is something I wanted to segment in of itself, because Pokemon is usually isolated from Nintendo first-party endeavors itself, sometimes but not all, and that is partially a reason why I invited Nutty on, because he's something of a big Pokemon fan such as myself, so
I will shamelessly purchase these games every year. I'm the problem.
I'll shamelessly make an updated list of my favorite Pokemon. So aside from merch and media, we do need to talk about the games, because we are at a very interesting point before the series' 30th anniversary where the games are both coexisting at a high point and low point. It is something I've never seen a game series attain, like being at both a high point and low point at the same time.
Yeah.
We're seeing superb innovation for the games at the cost of polish from a time frame Game Freak puts on themselves that is starting to show its cracks, especially with Scarlet and Violet, as much as I really enjoy those games. So before the predictions itself, I wanted to ask, how do you think we can see these improvements in the development?
So my kind of 2 cents on the whole thing is definitely like how the world was the last couple of years. Definitely, I feel like hampered the development, but I won't go too heavy into that.
Yeah.
Like, who knows what goes on behind the scenes? I, as a low internet artist, I know nothing that happens when it goes to game development, so I can't say anything about that. But I think my just general opinion is that I think Pokemon needs to kind of like understand that how its multimedia franchise is running needs to be adjusted a little bit just to support it, and maybe try not to go as big as Game Freak wants them to be. Maybe that's they have their expectations too high, I guess, for their own work.
I think I know exactly what you mean, because you think the studio, what Game Freak is and how long it has been, you think that it would be able to sustain itself more and not stretch itself too thin, but it's clear that we're seeing these cracks after a rough transition to the Switch. I regret using that wordplay as a Sonic fan, but the Switch has just been a very interesting period for Pokemon, where they start taking more risks, but then it comes at the cost of how much quality should they put more into certain aspects of their games.
I think also, like, going back to when you were saying it, like, I've never seen a franchise with a high and low as much as Pokemon's. Like, my man, you're a Pokemon, you're a Sonic fan. You've seen high and lows.
Okay. At the same time in one game.
Okay, that's fair. But it's interesting with Pokemon again is like, yeah, they just with how things are going with like the polish and stuff. It's like, I love Scarlet and Violet.
Same.
It's actually the most played Pokemon game on my Switch now.
Same.
And
Arceus, but
oh no, it's beaten I think it actually beat out Xenoblade 2 the other day.
Oh,
Wow.
That's how much I've played Scarlet and Violet. And I think it's just a general I don't think they need like the time to cook, but more I feel like Game Freak needs the support making it. I don't think Game Freak feasibly by themselves can make the game.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because that is one of my ideas for how we can see that improvement. Outsourcing more projects that can go to other studios, that can give Game Freak more time to like really produce something very fine, because we've seen really talented studios handle the Pokemon property. Look at Bandai Namco, like Pokemon
cooking.
Snap, Pokken Tournament, and I'm gonna say it, I like Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl. Okay,
Ooh,
I know.
No, I'm kidding.
Very. Look, I know they're very safe remakes, and
fine.
I call them remakesters because it strikes me much more as a remaster as opposed to the remake or generation revisit that they've been going for, and it's like you're in a situation. It's like, yeah, you could use Ilka again to like try again, see if they can find their flow, but at the same time, you have other studios. Like Nintendo.
I hate to be that person, but Monolith. I think Monolith. They made Xenoblade Chronicles 2 in 2 years, and that runs better than any of the Switch Pokemon games. Not that like.
Okay, but handheld mode though.
Oh, well, true. That's a fair point.
I would buy both if Monolith supported Game Freak on whatever Pokemon game they wanted to make next. I would buy both versions and the DLC, and I don't know. I'd be like, yeah, no, this is it. If anyone has more of my soul, it's Monolith than Pokemon. But we'll get to them.
They have my core crystal.
I don't go here with Pokemon that much. I haven't played one since Sword, but like I just think their current release schedule isn't sustainable. Like, games just cannot be pumped out in 3 years anymore, even with multiple teams. I do think the idea of getting another team so they can, if they want to have their yearly release schedule, just having more teams so they can have their 5 to 6 year development cycles for AAA games while still having more games coming out. I think that really is the best way to do it. Plus, I will say, I think if the new Switch has upgraded like technology, but it's on par with like a Steam Deck or a PS4 Pro, I think that'll help, because sometimes the Pokemon games on Switch give me the energy of a third-party game that runs perfectly fine on PS4 and Xbox, and then the Switch version is hot poo-poo.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
It's weird because Scarlet and Violet, from what I've gathered and what I've like read and such, it's not on the Switch. It's on Game Freak, unfortunately.
I mean, you don't have
it
to
is.
be a technical wizard to see that. There are plenty of other like open world games that I think the difference is that those were in development for longer than 3 years. But I think like with going back to like the 30th anniversary thing, which Pokemon, that would be 2026, right?
Yes.
So that
26.
I think that is the perfect timing, because it's like it's just long enough into a new generation that they could get to grips with the new hardware, and is also just enough removed from Generation 9, so it is like they could have the perfect time to cook. I hope that they do.
I didn't even think about like a Gen 10 matching up with the 30th anniversary.
Right,
I didn't
like,
think about
that's
that.
perfect. All they have to do is not release a Pokemon game for like 2 years. I don't know if they can do that.
I had floated before in private discussions with you lot in the past that they could take a gap here. Game Freak seldom takes gap years, but we have seen that in 2 instances in the entirety that they have made Pokemon games. 2015, we lost Pokemon Z for Sun and Moon, and I'm still sad about that.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Good.
Jenny, what were you gonna say?
Oh, I'm gonna say, like, if they want to pump out a game between like now and Gen 10 2026, you could do Legends I guess Victini. Here's my take. You do a Legends game from the same team that made Legends Arceus, and you have it be cross-gen, like everyone's saying Metroid Prime 4 will be. So the Switch version can run like how it does with Legends Arceus, which I assume is not that great, and then the Switch 2 version can maybe have a better frame rate and resolution, and it can sort of be them testing out this new technology without having to fully commit to this next generation.
Sure.
So this will go into the next section about predictions and such. So I'll hold that thought.
Yeah. No, but I was actually gonna say get into Pokemon predictions proper, just short. Scarlet and Violet had been confirmed after I had typed this that they are getting an epilogue sort of event on January 11th, and that's going to come with if you've seen Data Mines, you know what's probably coming. That's all I'll say. So,
I'm going to say right now, was a panic release. It's a theory, but I'm going to assume that announcement for the epilogue wasn't supposed to come till Pokemon Day, but because of the data mines and all that information and such, Game Freak's we need to get this out now.
Maybe they shouldn't have put it in the
Yeah, I know. Look, you've seen how Scarlet and Violet run. You can't. Yeah, Game Freak. What?
But I think Sword and Shield's raids, eventually the Scarlet and Violet Terra raid events are gonna simmer down the closer we get to our next game. Now as for a future performance update, I have went from 80% on from the beginning of the game to 20% on. Yeah, no, that's it's a pipe dream at this point. But otherwise, if we're not talking about mainline, you also have spin-offs. And, Pokemon Go is always going to be there, of course. Mystery Dungeon is the first thing that comes to my mind, naturally. We had a Red Rescue Team, Blue Rescue Team director's cut back in 2020. So I think it's prime for the long-fabled Explorers of the Sky remastered that everyone loves so much.
Honestly, I think they could just put Gens 1 through 3 on NSO this November. It's there's your holiday Pokemon game. Shut up and leave us alone. And everybody would be cool with that.
I'm at that point actually though, Brandon, where it's I'm at a point with Pokemon where I'd like to see them release more of their legacy content like they did on the 3DS. They even unlocked the Celebi phone event in Crystal. Imagine all the mystery gift and e-reader stuff for Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald, Fire, Red Leaf, Green, Diamond, Pearl, Platinum, Heart, Gold, Soul Silver, Black, White, Black 2, and White 2.
You're good to go
for that.
That's an easy dub.
Oh, I was going to do something for the e-reader stuff. They're going to re-release all those old e-reader cards. And you're going to have to connect Pokemon Go or Pokemon Home to the camera, and you have to take a picture of those cards to connect to the main
Nutty,
games,
you're a
not
monster.
going to make it easy.
You monster.
Am I wrong? This
No.
company's crazy. I'm telling you.
They are crazy.
They're the highest multimedia franchise in the world. Of course they're crazy.
And they have their hands wrapped around my wallet. So
What I think they'll do, this is part of a different theory I had, but I want to mention it because you mentioned putting them on NSO. I think whenever the Switch 2 does come around, it's going to have a slightly redone online service. It's still NSO, but it's maybe sort of streamlined for this new console. And I think in that new app, they could have a little Pokemon portal that specifically is where all the Pokemon games are. It has Red, Blue, and Crystal to start off with or whatever, and it has Pokemon Home connectivity, and you could eventually be hey, we're going to add all the other Pokemon games on here that are on NSO, and I think you could just have that as its own section on NSO, and I think that would get a ton of people to subscribe to it and also make up for not having a game that year.
NSO is going to be an interesting point of contention to talk about later on.
I don't think people will mind too much.
Yeah, no, I won't. Absolutely not.
That might be a good way to segue into our next section, honestly, because I feel like we all have our opinions on Pokemon.
I had a little more, but I do think for the sake of time, we should get moving on. So, summer. I call this section the big elephant in the room, not to be confused with Mr. Wowie Zowie Elephant Mario. So,
Beat me to the joke, I was about to say.
let's talk about what Nintendo has been casually, quietly hiding behind the fiscal year of March 2024. So, the reasons for a heavier port remaster for the first half or the summer of next year is because we are going to see a console announcement sometime before June, or in June. So, we're pretty sure it's going to be a hybrid like its predecessor, right?
Oh, 100%.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Oh, if Nintendo goes back to a strictly console thing, I genuinely don't know what I'd do.
Yeah.
I would cry. So, go ahead, Brandon.
Oh, I've just one quick thing that ever since the Switch has come out and we've kind of their handheld and console divisions have merged, I feel like it has made the best of both, right?
Yes.
Supporting both a console and a handheld to some degree kind of kneecaps both. And kneecaps the console more than the handheld because the handheld games traditionally were cheaper and quicker to develop for. And I think we've past the point where that is true and possible. So I think this is Nintendo's thing for the foreseeable future. I don't know if they can go back from this format anymore.
I had a theory, because we've had Nintendo Switch Pro, Super Nintendo Switch, Nintendo Switch 2. I had a theory for the name. It is so stupid, but this is also the same company that took the Wii branding and stuck a U to it. Yeah. My idea for what a sequel console to the Switch would be called would be Nintendo Switch Up. And my theory for the name is not only an up in the Switch's power, but it's named that way to still align with the Switch branding and continue that train of success. It's not as derivative as an innovation, but it can sell itself on being the most powerful hybrid console. Of course, Steam Deck being the closest thing to its competitor. It's so stupid, but I can see them doing that.
That is a very Nintendo name. A lot of times people try to replicate Nintendo names and it doesn't sound like Nintendo, but Nintendo Switch Up is something they would do.
It also has the U for Switch U.
Yeah, the abbreviation
will
would be Switch U, which is really funny. So I'm in support of this.
They could cheat their way up to the best-selling console if they kept the Switch branding if they wanted to. But then again, you have NES and Super Nintendo and Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advance. That's all separate stuff. But, knock on wood.
The Wii U, obviously, it sucked for a lot of reasons. And, obviously nobody knew what it was. And I think a big thing is that, again, like I talked about earlier about how the Wii had no momentum for basically the second half of its generation. You can argue this or that, but it did. The fad wore off in a way that I don't think is really true for the Switch in the same way. So I really
sorry, the Wii U had a fad.
No, the Wii was a fad.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was the Wii U was a fad. I'm there was no fad for the Wii U. No one.
I think the enthusiasm for the Wii brand really died off after 2009, 2010.
At least we had Xenoblade.
Yeah, of course. And not to say that there weren't good games released after that point, but I think that the branding itself was just, you can get into this whole thing.
The worst performing Zelda and Mario games came out, not on the Wii U, but in the latter years of the Wii.
And it got
absolutely.
Skyward Sword got its redemption arc with the Switch.
It did, but Mario Galaxy 2 and Skyward Sword are, I still think, the worst performing 3D Mario and Zeldas.
Maybe that's why we didn't see Galaxy 2 on the All-Star Collection.
It took the
still
wrong
hurts.
from it. But yeah, I think my broader point is basically I feel like they could kind of get away with calling it anything as long as it's a Switch
agree.
something. People still are they know and love the Switch. I think we're kind of at a different point in time than we were with the Wii U.
I'm gonna kind of be mad if they don't call it the Switch Up because I can already see the branding just power up your Switch with the Switch
Yeah,
or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
I didn't even
yeah.
think about that.
They
That's good
changed the
stuff.
logo so that instead of it being a Switch Joy-Con dropping down for the snap, it's a Switch Joy-Con going up for the snap. They literally changed the design
that's
where the
so
Joy-Con
good.
snaps like the opposite direction just for this.
That's
just for
brilliant.
this.
I love this. I love this, actually.
Yeah, it probably like they would have so like I feel like the reveal could have so many like different things like up with it. It's just like I don't know, maybe put the
What goes
cartridges
up?
in the bottom of it or what goes up, like power up and all that other stuff. So
But I guess speaking of up in terms of, the console itself, what are we expecting in terms of its power? Because that's something we gotta talk about. I love the Switch.
I am.
But you
That's a different
can
story.
tell it was hardware that was under development in the early 2010s.
I still have my year one Switch.
So do I.
So and like that's my main Switch. I don't have an OLED. I've had no like recent red box ones. So it's really fun when I play like Xenoblade 3 or if I play like even when I was playing Mario RPG, which I don't feel is that intensive. Like that fan
will
is
kick up.
Lordy, she be going.
So if this is gonna be, like hybrid, you can dock it and undock it. What is the current screen resolution of the Switch in handheld mode? Is it like 720p?
720.
Yeah, 720p.
Okay.
I think they should
So-
keep it there.
They
Yeah.
can. I would not be surprised if they tried to bump it up to 900p. Because in terms of docked, I do think 1080 becomes like the new norm. There
Finally.
might still be. I know. There still might be like 720 or like in the case of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom 900p. But I do think what Nintendo wants to shoot for is not necessarily 4K, but 1440p. I think later on we could see a SKU that could be 4K, but I do think like 1080 as the base for docked, but then you get a big boost with 1440p as your next resolution. I cannot imagine what Monolith Soft would do with a 1440p
Well,
game.
so here's where I get into my whole. This is I love this sort of stuff, because
Yeah.
I feel like when we have like displays and TVs with such high resolution, it does start to become a factor of like it's not the raw resolution numbers that matter when it's that high. It's more of just like the quality of like the post processing and upscaling and stuff like that. Whereas as long as something looks reasonably good on a 4K television, which most people buying TVs, are 4K TVs.
Yeah.
So as long as it's not like a jagged, like blurry mess, I think it's fine. And you could do a lot just with like straight 1080p. And I think that's when we get into things like, this might actually be the console with the best upscaling method because the Series X and the PS5 can't use DLSS, which is NVIDIA's
right.
AI-powered upscaler, which is by far the best upscaler if you have like a PC and an NVIDIA graphics card. Like it can work magic basically. I use it all the time to upscale from 1080 or 1440 to my 4K monitors, and it looks basically like native 4K. As far as I'm concerned, and if you're at TV distance, I think it would look 1080 upscale to 4K would look completely fine.
I think with the Switch too, I think as well I do think handheld should stay 720 just because the like
Battery life.
depending on how big the thing is.
Yeah, battery life.
But also like how big the screen is. I generally don't think it would benefit from 1080.
Not at all.
So like leaving it at 720 is fine. But also like another thing is I personally don't feel like Switch, like I don't feel like Nintendo until when it comes to resolutions, I don't feel like they ever are like one step ahead with it or try to match what's common.
Yeah.
So like they will see 4K, but they'll do 4K for like in the far future. Like I feel like Nintendo's also pretty consistent where I find they think about like consume like their customers who are still using like 1080 TVs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like I know a lot of people who have smaller TVs that play their Switch on that instead of trying to use a big 4K TV for that stuff.
Yeah, that's why I said I'm less concerned with the numbers and more of just like a lot of Switch games just look like dog water. Like they do. They just look bad. They have no anti-aliasing and like at such low resolutions. Like a lot of them just look really rough.
I think Xenoblade 3 still looks excellent for what it is, but I do admit, like, you can see a bit of that anti-aliasing, a bit of that fluctuation, like in real time on occasion, and it is distracting.
I'm just sick of a new Switch game coming out, like a new first-party game, and it runs at 30 frames per second on handheld or console, and it's 720p, or just I'm just tired of Switch games not looking as good as they could, especially when it comes to third-party stuff. I remember when the Switch was first a big new thing, all the third-party ports were like cool because you could play them in handheld mode. And now whenever they announce one, I'm just like, why? It just looks like terrible. Sometimes it's cloud streaming, which is useless. I really think we need that upgrade.
I'm playing the Crisis Core remake on Switch, and my God, it does not look good.
It's a PSP game, and they can't do. Oh my God.
I do think third parties are the ones that typically struggle the most with this.
For sure.
I will talk about third parties eventually, because it's Nintendo's like core studios that usually know how to they know how to cook. And I guess the topic of software, I was going to talk about like the controller and retail price, but I wanted to skip ahead a little and talk about backwards compatibility. They would be very silly not to do that.
If they don't have it, I am going to Seattle with some questions for Doug Bowser.
Yeah, it's
honestly same. Yeah, same. I have too big of a Switch collection nowadays that like I don't like. Okay, my Wii U is still plugged into like our family TV because I do play it on occasion, but when I play on my Wii U, I am just like, why can't I play this on Switch?
Yeah.
Why can't I play my virtual console games on Switch?
Because it's like, I believe it was Furukawa who mentioned, it was Furukawa or Bowser that were mentioned, like, we're trying to look at a way to, like, transition all of our NSO users into the next generation after the Switch. They are being very vague about what that means. But, we've also seen rumblings of, like, new cartridges, but it's also, like, that doesn't mean much because you look at the 3DS, it can run DS cartridges just fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we get new cartridges, I just think it'll be, like, larger ones. Like, I do think $70 is going to be the new standard price, because there's going to be larger file sizes on cartridges, like Tears of the Kingdom was. And I think that'll be one of the big new things with Switch 2 cartridges.
It's interesting you say that, though, because, like, Tears of the Kingdom came out as, like $70 game for the Americans, and then, like, afterwards, we've had Tears of the Kingdom was the only one. Wonder came out at 60.
Pikmin.
Pikmin came out at 60. So like Tears of the Kingdom is the only outlier here, and it's interesting.
I think for Tears, it's a couple things. Well, it's the cart size for one, and I also think it's the team size because it is sort of like that is an all hands on deck kind of project for Nintendo with. I think somewhere upwards of like multiple hundreds, of people in the credits. Like most Nintendo games aren't as big productions as, these open world Zelda games.
In one of Sakurai's earliest videos, he did talk about like console pricings and how that naturally started to like build up because of like team size, because of the technology they're working with. It's unfortunately, just a part of life, I guess, for the gaming industry, where it's like we're at a point where it's like we get these games, like they're going on sale, of course, we have different price ranges for these games, but it's like we're starting to get closer and closer to 100 in terms of American prices. It's just an unfortunate side effect, but you should still have these big teams, of course, and of course keep them on for future projects. Don't fire them. I would
like to make one more comment about power, if I may.
Yeah, sure.
I do think it is actually, as much as we all, bemoan that the Switch is a weak console using, like 2015 Android hardware, basically. But I do think it is kind of really important for like one of the big three to be kind of like we're the low end. We are making sure that like game production and budgets and scope has like a floor. And I think that's really important for like indies and AA studios and stuff like that. And I feel like there are a lot of studios that are like able to subsist because they're not like the expectation isn't on them to make like AAA third-person Sony level productions every time. So
I think that's important.
Yeah, and hey, Nintendo games actually are actually developed with reasonable scope most of the time.
Yeah.
I do think one advantage this generation has compared to the previous is that by the time the Switch came out, like there hadn't been a PS3 game for like 4 years. Like it was like people had fully moved on to this new generation, and that was a problem when the Switch was way less powerful than a PS4. So if you got a port, it was really compromised, and everything else was from the past gen. But this time, like there's still only like 3 PS5 exclusives, and like God of War Ragnarok, which came out last year, was also on PS4. So if this new console is more powerful than a PS4, which it will be, it would be able to run God of War Ragnarok or an equivalent game from another system. So it means we're going to be able to have a lot more recent ports or re-releases onto this new console.
Yeah, and I think there's nobody expecting like to get a PS5 level game out of a little portable tablet.
I don't know.
Absolutely not.
If you're thinking a PS5 game's going to be on Switch too,
Yeah.
then you need to find a different company to hang out with, because that's not Nintendo.
If you think a PS5 game is going to be on Switch 2, you got to find a PS5 game.
Yeah, hey, got him.
Oh
Ew.
my god. Have you seen the Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart loading on PC? It is terrifying.
Yeah, if you use
I
a
don't like it.
hard drive, it's
Yeah.
Going back to the pricing thing, I think with Switch 2 games, I think we're going to see, instead of like an abrupt, like, it's going to go immediately to 7, I feel like there's going to be, because Nintendo's has been like, with their smaller games, they've definitely yeah, we can go down to the 50 or the 40. That's okay. We do that with WarioWare. I think with Switch 2 games, I think we're going to see a gradual shift instead of like suddenly it's at 70.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be like 60 with some 70s sprinkled into it, and that's kind of how I think it'll end up, I guess.
And I guess on the topic of pricing, the console itself, Brandon, you brought up earlier, like, it is important for them to be the low end, and I do think that extends to the price of the console itself to an extent. And I do think that's tricky, because if it is going to be more powerful, but not quite PS5 level or Xbox Series X level, I'm perplexed how much it would actually be, and the only estimated price range I could give it is between $350 to $400. Now, as a compromise, I put in my notes here that the previous Switch, they start to see price cuts. The OLED gets cut to $275, original Switch to $225, and then like to $175.
Yeah, which is an interesting little anecdote, is that we've gone this entire generation without a price cut for the original Switch, which is insane. That is not normal.
Yeah, no, it's not.
I'm going to put a prediction with relating to pricing, sort of. I feel like if they come out with a Switch, when they come out with the Switch 2, I think it's going to have a light from the get-go.
Oh,
I
wow.
agree.
Oh, that's...
Okay, look, my cousins, I have a lot of them. A bunch of my cousins just got Switches for Christmas, and like 2 of them got full Switches, and then the younger ones got Switch Lights. And so like that's what I feel like Nintendo is very much going to be like. They're going to point out, it's like the Switch 2 Lite is going to be for the younger kids, while the Switch Lite like full is going to be for the older or the family. It's like the idea of like the kids can have their own, but the parents and the whole family can have
I think
one.
that's smart.
That's smart, and I do think something that does tie into another point, and this is going to be my last point because we've been in this for a bit, to transition into the next thing, but I do think something that will be considerable for pricing is the new controller. I think with this new controller, I think they need to be very careful with how they handle it. I love Joy-Con.
Yeah.
I'm very unpopular with that. I do like Joy-Con. I do like HD Rumble. But they need to fix their sticks. I do think of the big 3 currently, since Nintendo was the first console to get that kind of backlash, I do think Nintendo will be the first up to bat to counter anti-drift. But as a result, for better sticks, I can see stuff like HD Rumble getting phased out.
You mean like because only 2 games use the HD Rumble and nothing else?
Yeah.
Oh wait, no, 3. 1, 2. Everybody 1, 2 Switch came out, so 3 games.
I'm
that
fine
use the
with
HD
that.
logo.
I think, like, actually, one of the things I was predicting is that there will be a new redesigned Joy-Con. Like, I think, like, it'll be like, since they're doing a new brand, it'll still be a Switch, but they'll have a new Joy-Con design that looks slightly nicer, maybe doesn't have drift. They could have a new Switch Lite design. I think, like, for Switch Lite, you can, I think if you're going to do a new Switch Lite model, you should have it where it can be docked, but it doesn't come with a dock and you have to, like, get a separate one. Because it is kind of lame that, like, there's no reason that a Switch Lite can't dock, in my opinion. I don't know if there's a hardware reason, but I don't see why there would be. So just have it where it can.
The Joy-Cons can't attach, Jenny. That's why.
It's like obviously, like, there's still a disadvantage. You still have to buy a dock and a Pro Controller if you want to dock it, but it's still an option. Like, I think I don't get why it's not like that, honestly.
I was gonna say that in context of backwards compatibility, I wouldn't be surprised if they made it so, like, you could still use old Joy-Cons on the new, like, it would like, there would probably be some benefits for the new controllers, but like old Joy-Cons still work.
I don't think there's any
way.
reason to change like the attachment system.
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
it's
maybe
fine.
make them bigger.
Yeah.
My hands are too big for the Joy-Cons.
They are small.
They're so little.
I guess transitioning from the summer to the fall, when this launches, I think we're all in agreement, it's either going to be sometime between October and March of 2024 to 2020. Christmas would be wild. We talked about the console itself. Let's talk about what kind of games we can expect. Now, I've listed an entire, like, post-launch software manifesto or whatever for, like, Nintendo's IPs, but I wanted to talk about the first few months, including its launch day, because I'm of the opinion if they play their cards right, we can see one of the best launches for a Nintendo console. The Switch's launch was good. It had Breath of the Wild.
And nothing else.
Exactly, that was my point.
Give me Nintendo Land 2.
I actually think that might be the lesson that they learned, though, is because I think the like, everybody reflects on 2017 as like one of the best years for games, and I think like a part of that was just how they, like, Nintendo was able to have a good release like every 4 to 6 weeks basically throughout the entire year.
Yeah,
was like something like, oh yeah, the Switch, got like a new exclusive. So I think that like that strategy worked really well, and that they should just try to do that again.
I agree. I think I have, like, my whole, like, timeline is I think it'll come out in October, because it's not quite November. It gives them a little bit of leeway for, like, the supply chain stuff, but September is a little early because it would need to be announced really early. And then you have a launch with a 3D Mario, because I mean that's what everyone's saying. It's not very original to me.
We'll get
November,
to Mario.
November you could do. I think that's where I put Pokemon Legends in my predictions. Like, it could be a cross-gen release. Like,
I think I brought that up
Switch.
too.
Yeah, like, it's on Nintendo Switch, and you can run like crap like usual, but on Super Nintendo Switch it runs slightly less bad, so you can buy it there too.
Hey.
It would be like when the 3DS came out in 2012, but then Black 2 and White 2 were still like DS.
Yeah.
Exactly, except slightly more fitting. And then also Metroid Prime 4 in December. Like, I think that's like kind of in the same slot you put like Xenoblade Chronicles 2, where it's like the slightly more like niche game that would still do really well in this time frame.
That's a good selection. Nutty?
Going back to a little bit to like the power situation. Going back to this, I forgot to mention this in the last section. But I was thinking like I feel like we'd have a thing where, like, how the PS5 can play PS4 games, and then some of them, like, they have a specific like, this is better on PS5 kind of thing. I can find that a lot of like any games that release around that time, like, you can play this on the old Switch, but if you play it on Switch 2,
oh yeah, we'll have cross-gen.
We'll blow your socks off.
Imagine Pokemon Scarlet and Violet running at 30 frames all the time.
It won't happen. It's literally coded not to run.
I can dream, Steven!
So can I, and I don't dream
If the console launches in the fall, I do anticipate Prime 4 alongside it. I could see an inverse of Jenny's prediction where Mario's for December, but it launches with Prime. Like, I do think that's a very unique...
Yeah, that makes sense too.
I do think that's a very unique thing that I've seen from Nintendo consoles in the past since the GameCube.
Well, the Wii, one of its launches was Prime.
Prime
That
3,
was-
that's
was
right.
Prime 3.
That was the year after, wasn't it? It was a year after, I
No,
thought.
Was it 2007?
Was it?
I'm pretty sure it was 07.
I swore it was.
I remember 3 was a part of the We Would Like to Play promos.
Okay.
I'm gonna look up.
It's
that up.
almost like how Twilight Princess came out on the Wii launch, and then like Mario came a little bit later. Like,
Yeah,
almost
yeah.
like that.
Oh, it was 2007. My bad. I thought it launched the same year. Curse you, Nintendo Power.
Yeah, it is what it is. Yeah, no, even with the Switch, you had Breath of the Wild at the very beginning. You had Mario Kart the month after, even though it was a port. Not a lot of people played Mario Kart, and it shows, given that Deluxe is the best-selling Switch game. And then you had Odyssey all the way in October.
With like what Brandon said earlier, is that every month Nintendo had a big game. Like we had Breath of the Wild, Mario Kart, Splatoon 2 was in June, I think. There was like a big game after big game, and there was no breathing room.
It really wasn't. But I guess speaking of games, we talked about first party. If you wanted to talk about third party support, I do think that's going to be very interesting for this console generation, because I love the third party support on Switch, but it really does feel like a lot of the time they are half-assing a few ports. I am looking at you, Square, with your Kingdom Hearts garbage. I am not happy about that.
Ugh.
If you were thinking about any game you wanted to launch the new Switch with, what would you want it to launch alongside with in terms of like a good third-party game? Now, I just asked this. I do kind of want to go first.
Okay.
Go right ahead.
Elden Ring.
Oh,
That's a good one.
that's
a good.
That's one of the
that's a-
ones that was in my. I had a few in my predictions, and that was one of them.
Yeah.
I have no predictions written down except for what's in my head right now.
I
So-
wanted to beat to the punch that Elden Ring is right there. You had Dark Souls on the Switch, I think 2018.
Yeah.
Again,
2018.
not a lot of breathing room. I
It
can't remember
delayed a
the
lot,
schedule about that. But Bamco is a really good partner
Yeah, they love
of
the Switch.
Nintendo. And like outside of Smash, outside of whatever that new dedicated Nintendo team is working on, I do think you want to get one of the most critically acclaimed games of last year onto the Switch. You do it with that console generation as a launch title or launch window. And I think that's how you like really hook people and demonstrate, hey, the Switch can like run Elden Ring, this beautiful game. Just like how back when we saw it in 2016, where it's like you can play Skyrim, PS3 and Xbox 360 game
That's
in
exactly
the
what I
palm
was
of your
gonna bring
hands.
up.
Yeah. I do
Yeah.
think that is a harder sell these days, since like the portable handheld market is so much more fleshed out than when the
I
Switch
suppose.
originally launched. Like if I wanted to play Elden Ring handheld, like I could buy a Steam Deck and it would actually run better than the PC version or even
But
the console version.
It's weird. It's weird to say that because like still nowadays I find that the Steam Deck is very niche. Like
It
PC
is.
gaming,
For sure.
very like for the casual consumer, PC gaming is so foreign to them.
The people who love the Steam Deck
Yeah.
love the Steam
I
Deck.
just think in terms of novelty, I don't think it hits the same.
I understand.
Oh no, I get you.
I think they're gonna go for a similar Skyrim effect, where it's like, look at this AAA game from the previous generation on our
Yeah.
handheld. But they're not gonna do just one game. Like I think Elden Ring will definitely be one of them, though. I feel like that's
Yeah.
definitely gonna be
Yeah,
ported
yeah.
there. But I had a few others I was thinking. Like I think Cyberpunk 2077. It's on
Ooh.
Oh,
PS4.
wow.
I think that's gonna be one
Ooh.
of the ones they show. I think Street Fighter 6. That's like an easy. Like of course it's gonna be.
Yep.
On
Oh, absolutely.
That was the only console Street Fighter wasn't on.
RE4.
When it.
Yeah, RE4. You could do like Final Fantasy VII Remake. I'm kind of going through the list of.
You
partners
beat
right
me
now.
to it.
Yeah.
That,
yes,
that's fine. We do need to keep things going.
Yeah, and Squire said like the most acclaimed game of previous years. I think Baldur's Gate 3 is going to be on Switch too at some point. Because
If anything Nintendo got, I feel like that would be the thing that they would put in the reveal trailer.
Yeah.
I think so too,
yeah.
because it just won a game of the year.
That would be
Like,
that would be the Skyrim. That would be the Skyrim of the original.
100%.
Because that's the ultimate game to be able to have on a Switch. It has
Yeah.
cross saves on all of the consoles it's on. They just put it on Xbox, so they're willing to port it. Like I think that's an
Yeah.
easy choice. And then you put Shadowheart and Smash.
if we saw anything from them for third party, I think it would be like we'd have like the big name like say Baldur's Gate 3, but then like in the same reveal be like here's another Microsoft exclusive, here's another Sony exclusive kind of scenario.
I don't think the Sony thing is happening, but Microsoft for
Look,
sure.
I just want Horizon on my Switch.
Sony's got to stick up their DualSense.
I think I can see them putting Starfield on there, being like, "Hey guys, Starfield! Remember Starfield? We put it on the Switch."
There's our launch era Bethesda game. Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, it's that's the Skyrim equivalent.
Get our Samus armor.
Yeah, we put Samus armor in Starfield. Please play the game now.
Oh my god.
It's just Breath of the Wild Link again. it's like no different. It's just the same stuff from Skyrim.
Yeah,
That's too funny.
I did mention Square Enix and my disdain for how they handled like their more modern collection. I do think they could redeem themselves with Kingdom Hearts 3.
Real ports.
That is a very
real ports. would be
actual
awesome.
ports. Let it rain from the cloud, damn it.
The most baller move they could do would be to have the Story So Far collection on Switch, like just one box. Maybe it would have like 1 or 2 cartridges in it because there is a lot of games on there. But have it all physical and not on the cloud. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Featuring Sora from Smash Bros.
Yeah, I'll have that on the box.
Okay, speaking of Square, I came up with one more thing, but before that, Nier Automata and Replicant. Automata, I hear is good on Switch, of course.
Yeah,
you
solid.
can see the compromise. But I would love to see like PS4 graphic performance style on Switch. And then just throw Replicant in there. My last thing.
Oh yeah.
Final Fantasy 14.
Ooh.
Oh my god.
Oh.
Sure, yeah.
That would.
Oh man, I'm mad that's not on Switch now.
Can you imagine
I'm
playing that
s-
game portably?
Oh, that would be crazy.
I can, but
Well, you can't because you need the internet access.
Oh,
but,
yeah,
you know,
you're right.
Okay, here's although like Squire, you mentioning Squire gave me a big brain idea that I think like if they want to ensure that this console is a big success right out of the gate, what they could show in their reveal trailer is Dragon Quest 12.
Oh, don't do that.
That's
to
the
me.
Japan play.
Gosh.
That's the Japan
3
play.
HD,
On
3
that-
HD.
Oh,
3 HD.
Yeah, 3H. Like it's been so long since they revealed both of those. I think it's perfect timing to bring that back.
I think if they really want to push the Switch 2, putting just Dragon Quest 12 and not 3 HD in the reveal would genuinely, like, day one would sell people on it.
Absolutely.
At least in Japan.
I know. I mean, like we got 11. You know, like two years after the Japanese release, 1 year after the US release. But I think it was kind of like, oh, it launched and like, but I guess they were so like we need to launch on Nintendo consoles that they made a whole 3DS version of 11. So I feel like whatever they're doing with 12, I think will probably be on Nintendo day and date with the others.
If S probably is the reason why it sold so much better, excluding Smash Brothers, but like
Of course.
S, I think I heard more about the S version of Dragon Quest 11 than I ever did when it was on PS4 and Xbox.
I'm certain. I would not.
I
doubt
replayed
that.
it on Switch. I didn't want to get, even though I'm a sucker for higher frame rates, you know, performance and optimization is more of my forte as opposed to graphics.
It's an RPG. Why do you need the frame rate?
I like higher frame rates.
It feels better.
Me
It just
too.
does.
Me too.
I can't say anything. I played Persona 5 on PS3, so
I
my
play
God.
I play Persona 5 on Switch.
Don't
There's
talk to me
another
about
one.
Frame rates, you Pokemon fans.
okay.
Okay. I think we should move on to post-launch software. Okay. So we are an hour and 8 minute in, according to my audio file. So there is so much potential for what Nintendo could offer in terms of their first-party endeavors. In terms of their first-party software. So I have listed quite a few IPs. Want to get them relatively quickly, you know. We'll see, of course, because the first one I want to talk about is the big old red man himself, Mario.
Santa
the other
Claus?
one.
I was literally thinking Santa Claus when you said that.
I think we're all pretty in agreement that it's going to be like, it's a 3D Mario coming. We might get a 2D, and I think there's no like argument that Mario Kart 9 is going to be within the first year.
It's gonna be Mario Kart 10, silly.
All right,
All right,
Tour's
miss.
9.
I made an hour long.
We're not
video.
quite at Mario Kart yet. We're not quite at Mario Kart yet, Jenny. We'll get there. But I had an idea for the next 3D Mario that I had been keeping in my back pocket, because I do think whatever it's going to be, it's going to take the best of both worlds from Odyssey and Bowser's Fury, and I do think that means you get Odyssey's control with an interconnected world like in Bowser's Fury. And my personal idea for this, I call it Super Mario Fun Size. My idea is, how do you make an interconnected world? You shrink Mario down.
Ooh.
Like, how I envision it is, you shrink Mario down to the size of a toy. You have all these different rooms or a floor that's, like, dedicated to, like, exploring, like, a kitchen, a bedroom, like, a toy set, you know? Maybe go outside, you know? Like, and I know Pikmin 4, you know, had the suburb kind of element to it, but it's like, I think you could really make potential. It's like, if you want to make the world interconnected, like, have Mario, like, go through the air vents, go upstairs, go downstairs. A lot of good ideas, I think. If you need to confine Mario to, like, a singular space, make it interconnected, little load times other than, like, fast travel, I think it would be a cool concept. And up Mario's up Mario's alley to shrink him down.
Hi, yes. Chibi Robo would like called, and he would like his game, please.
Chibi Robo's in the basement with Giga Robo.
I know.
There will be a Chibi Robo Easter egg in like a back of a closet in the game, and that's all you're gonna get, and you will like it.
We thought about it.
will
We did it. We
to
did
say
the
that's a
thing.
new game. We did the Chibi Robo.
It's going to be the Toy Story 2 sequence when Jessie's remembering her old owner. It's when she loved... instead of Jessie under the bed, it's Chibi Robo, like, covered in dust.
I think that
Yeah.
I do think that's a fun concept though. I feel like there's a lot you could do with it. I think you could even do it where it's like almost like next to a mall, so you could have like the outdoor
that's good.
level that you can like go into a mall and there can be like a bookstore and like a toy store, and then you can also have like the house stuff and like have squeaky clean sprint type level with a bathroom. Like I think that would be fun. I would like that.
Ribbon Road in Squeaky Clean Sprint did get me thinking about that. And Toy Story 2 for the PlayStation, that too.
Oh yeah, like well, because I wholly agree that I think the next game we get is gonna be a Bowser's Fury on like a full scale. So like we have that mix of like the like linear 3D style, like 3D world where you go through levels in a linear order, but you can also explore its entire world and find these levels in them, kind of like Bowser's Fury. I think that's the ultimate way to go. It would be a great tech showcase.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'd just be cool to have like the Mushroom Kingdom fully explorable. Like you can have like a fully contextualized Mushroom Kingdom would be cool. Like actually being able to find where Peach's castle is relative to other places with like these levels in between them. I just think that'd be really cool.
I have nothing to add, but I love all those ideas. Just bring them on.
Yay!
64
Thank you.
remake.
Okay.
We'll go the Square route. We'll just remake 64, but we'll do the Square route where it's a
Plot
remake
ghosts.
in question.
Not the plot
boost.
ghosts.
Plot boost.
I like that.
I can't throw the penguin off a cool mountain. The plot ghosts are stopping me from doing that. They don't like... Okay, Mario Kart. Jenny, you kick this off. Because that IP... That's yours. That's yours. All yours.
I think if they do like, you know how the Switch had that like January 2017 presentation that just revealed a bunch that's coming for it. I think if they do an equivalent of that for the next Switch system, they'll be like, oh yeah, we're making a new Mario Kart. They're not going to give any details about it yet, but they're just going to say that to make the shareholders happy. And I think if we do get one, it's either going to come out like end of 2025, like holiday 2025, or like March 2026. So quite a while away, but also not that far away if you think about it.
Yeah, I was back and forth about the launch window.
It's gonna be like the original reveal trailer where they showed us a little bit of Mario Kart, but it was King Boo. So like, I don't know, they'll do it, but it's just like, I don't know, oh man, who isn't in, it'll just be Nabbit in a car.
Yeah, like just like, oh
But it'll
look,
look like Mario Kart 8.
We put Prince Florian from Wonder into a car. Well, I think they could have like a little teaser trailer that shows like really gorgeous new graphical style and maybe like one or two new characters. Like maybe if they have a new gimmick, maybe they could show it, but I don't expect a new gimmick. I did an entire discussion video about the future of Mario Kart on my channel, so you can watch that.
You all should listen to it. It's very wonderful.
Thank you.
In terms of other like Mario-related stuff, of course, you have sports, you have spin-offs, you have Mario Party, you have Paper Mario. I do think, sports, like all those Mario spin-offs usually like do fill out like, like there's a little bit of downtime, Nintendo will be like, okay, ND Cube, what do you got working on? Camelot, you have anything cooking? I do think our first spin-off that we would get would be Mario Party, though.
Yeah, it's been a minute. I think that would make sense.
And I think Camelot needs to take a moment, sit down, evaluate why they had a bit of trouble with support in terms of Mario Tennis and Mario Golf. That's just me. You just put everything all in one place when the game launches. You don't need to do free updates.
Impossible. No, we will have one board and the rest is DLC.
Okay, before I forget, please give me baseball back.
Oh God.
No.
I just want
turn
baseball.
on your Wii and you'll like it.
I just want baseball. I included these two under Mario because, like, they're big enough, but they're also in the Mario universe. I hope for a new Donkey Kong, but I can go for quite an extended period of time without Yoshi. That's all I'm gonna say on that.
Imagine a society with no Yoshi games.
They probably won't make a Yoshi for a while.
Imagine they just stopped after Yoshi's Island.
Imagine if they just stopped after Woolly World, because like Woolly World was really good.
Imagine if they only made Woolly World and that was it. That's our compromise.
Speaking of good, Zelda.
2027.
So in terms of like Zelda, of course, big series, Tears of the Kingdom just launched. I'm going to start with this. I do think whatever Aoyama and Fujibayashi are cooking up, that's not going to be due until the end of the decade. But
no.
I don't think that necessarily means smaller things can't happen before then.
Oh, sure.
So outside of potential ports, I think it's about time for some more remakes. Oracle of Ages and Seasons and Minish Cap, all good contenders. But I do think there are fun surprises. And for me, I love Spirit Tracks. I'd love to play that without the constraints of the stylus, even though like the stylus stuff, the DS puzzles they came up with are really cool. But it's like I love Spirit Tracks, and I just want to play it like on the big screen, see what that would be like.
That would be cool.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna say, if we're gonna get any remakes, it's either I would like to see Oracles, because like those are the most underrated. Like I haven't even played them, but I know that they are very underrated. Like
They're good.
Zelda games.
I played I played through quite a bit of Seasons. I didn't end up finishing it, but I had my fun with it, and I do want to go back to it eventually.
But I think with how things are going right now with the Switch, and then onto the Switch 2, I think with this last year, I would not be surprised if somehow we got a Triforce Heroes remake.
Ooh, that's good.
Or remaster,
just
or
like
port
that.
to the Switch.
You know what I want? I want a new 2D Zelda. I want 2D Zelda to have its Mario Wonder moment. It's been over a decade since the last new 2D Zelda that wasn't multiplayer focused. It's far overdue. Like, Link's Awakening would be a nice little template to do something entirely new with that style. I think it'd be a cool way to appease fans of the classic Zelda style who aren't as into the Breath of the Wild thing by doing a more classic story but with a new world and stuff. Like, I think that's way overdue. But the prediction I put on mine was much less exciting. I put Hyrule Warriors Age of Upheaval coming to Super Nintendo Switch in spring 2025.
That actually ties into one of my predictions that's a little bit less specific, but I think Omega Force will show up with a Muso of something.
Yep.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that. I do like Age of Calamity. Too bad it runs like garbage, but
I do too. I'm a defender of that game.
I really like the original Hyrule Warriors, and I would like them to go back one day to exploring multifaceted games, because there's so many different characters outside of the Breath of the Wild universe you can still have fun with. You have the champions, of course. You have the Happy Mask salesman. You have the Yetis from Twilight Princess. Like, let me play as Yeto, snowboard around, and pour hot soup on people.
Okay, here's my thing though. Part of my prediction is that a sequel, it would be a sequel to Age of Calamity, so it's like that timeline where like they survive the calamity and stuff. Spoilers.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
But then they start going kind of like the original Hyrule Warriors, where it becomes like a multiverse thing, and they go to different timelines.
Ooh, that's good.
So it's like a mix of the two Hyrule Warriors games. Like it's the
That would be. It was the one thing I wanted from the original. Age of Calamity, especially with like the DLC that they had for it. Because let's be real, the DLC for Age of Calamity was nothing compared
It was mid.
to like.
It just came.
It was not great.
I think it would be smart because like a lot of Muso games just have massive casts in them. So I think it'd be a good opportunity to just have all the characters from the first game, all the characters from the second game. You could have like, because I mean, I love Tears of the Kingdom, but it doesn't add as many new characters as Breath of the Wild did. But it would still be an excuse to add a Rauru and Minoru and maybe Sonya and Tulin, while also adding new characters from that haven't appeared yet. Like, how did we never get Groose in the original Hyrule Warriors? Or
Groose, that was another one I forgot. I should leave this discussion. I forgot Groose. How could I?
Or like Saria, like any of the Majora's Mask like mask summons. Like, how come none of those were playable? But like, yeah, I think it'd be fun to have like these as the main characters, but then you go on a whole multiverse adventure.
What I was expecting with Age of Calamity's DLC is that they were gonna start like. It would have been cool if they brought Lana and like made her work with the Breath of the Wild art style. Like, I think they should have. Maybe people don't appreciate the original characters they had for the first Hyrule Warriors, and like I think Lana would have been like super cool to see in Age of Calamity, because like they made this concept of Lana and Sia in spoilers for Hyrule Warriors, Lana and Sia being like fate people who watch over all timelines and like
arbiters,
how they don't show up. Yeah, arbiters of the timelines, and oh no, the Zelda timeline.
I did think that if they make a sequel to Hyrule Warriors that includes Tears of the Kingdom elements, I want them to bring back Terrako and give him a new moveset where he's like tricked out with Zonai parts. Like he becomes like a monster truck with like the giant wheels, or he has like,
oh my god.
Like
that would go crazy.
But
I
like,
did. Go ahead, Nutty.
I weirdly just had a bad idea of like how, you know how you were saying that like I just brought up like Sia and Lana being like, hey, they're arbiters of the timeline.
Yeah.
Like, make sure everything goes right. I just realized you could definitely take the story for that, where like Sia's trying to correct the timeline by killing Zelda or whatever, because that's not what happens. Because people don't.
That
like
would be cool.
How
so it's like the Tears of the
twist.
Kingdom cast versus the like regular Zelda cast. So you have like Link, like champion blue tunic Link versus like regular green like outfit Link. That would be awesome, actually.
That'd go crazy. Before moving on from Zelda, I had two more things to talk about. The first thing is tying into the next big Zelda game. I put forth the notion, if Breath of the Wild was originally inspired by Skyrim, I do think our next big title is going to take cues from Elden Ring. And I think how they do this is they make the world, like, they keep the open air aspect, of course, but, like, think about how Elden Ring, if you played it, it is, like, super non-linear with its world design. It's really smart how you can just be in one corner of the map, suddenly you trip, and then you're in a volcano place, you know what I mean? And I do think that will kind of play into the art style. I do think the art style is going to be a little darker, but I don't think it's going to be realistic, like pseudo-realistic, like early 2000s Lord of the Rings inspired like Twilight Princess was. I think it's going to be like somewhere in between like the more traditional like Link to the Past, Breath of the Wild look, and then Twilight Princess or Majora's Mask infused. You know, that's how I see
sense.
that.
Yeah, because I think they
out.
could. I mean, I feel like that's them playing to the hardware. Like they could push things in a just like a slightly more realistic manner. Because at the end of the day, yeah.
They said they made the Mario Wonder art style more expressive to match the look of the movie, because that's an anime movie that's going to be expressive. Well, the Zelda movie is going to be live action, so if they follow suit, they maybe will do a slightly more realistic style.
Oh, that's an interesting point.
Yeah.
It's also going to be interesting with the next Zelda, where it's not, because let's be real, the Breath of the Wild is a Wii U game.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It is. It
Tears of the Kingdom is a Wii U game plus more.
Yeah.
So like, whatever Zelda comes next, it's probably going to be strictly started on the new hardware.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like I guess that's what's most exciting to me. I don't have a lot to say in terms of just like the theory crafting, but like we are really like we're shaking off the limitations of what basically is, you know, like more or less equivalent to like 7th gen Xbox 360 PS3 hardware.
Yeah. The last thing I wanted to mention is during the lifespan of this next console, there is going to be a very important milestone. 2028 will mark 30 years since Ocarina of Time's release. Do you think we're going to see something special for that?
Maybe, but not because of the anniversary.
Remember how I joked about Mario 64 having plot ghosts and getting a remake?
Oh my god.
Can we do that with Ocarina of Time? Just to be funny?
I can just imagine Ocarina of Time's overworld with Breath of the Wild's engine and the day-night cycle not being 3 minutes.
But 2 hours to get to the castle.
Yeah, no,
instead.
like that's a way you can make a remake stand. It's like you make that world interconnected, but you also change the stuff that may not have necessarily aged as gracefully.
All I want is them to do Ocarina of Time 3D and Majora's Mask 3D, but on Switch or Switch 2.
So do I.
I'd be happy
so
with
do
that,
I.
honestly. Yeah.
I think that's more than enough for that.
I think just make us Master Collection, but with instead of like Zelda 1 and Zelda 2, just give us like Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask 3D, and then Twilight Princess and Wind Waker HD. Just give us a redux of the Master Collection.
I do think those should come with remastered soundtracks because Zelda's, like, one of its crucial aspects is its music. And I do think it didn't hit me back then when it came out, but in hindsight, it is really weird that all the remasters we got in the 2010s didn't have updated soundtracks.
Yeah, I can accept
Wind
it
Waker
for
did.
some... Wait, what?
Yeah, Wind Waker had a few.
I get it on when it's a 3DS game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if
It's,
it was a console game, you would need an orchestra.
it stands out real bad with Twilight Princess.
Yes.
Yeah.
Those are a bunch of synth you can tell those. I can tell those compositions were made for an orchestra before Miyamoto turned it down.
Yeah.
If they do bring like Majora's Mask 3D and Ocarina of Time 3D to consoles with just like up-resed graphics or whatever, I think I would be okay with them using the original like maybe a higher resolution version of the N64 bytes or like the music for that, because I think it works still with its art style. But with like Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, I think them having full orchestrated versions of their songs works a lot better.
I'm not going to say this is like a hard expectation, but I do think when it comes to like remakes, remasters these days, like it is really common to like, hey, we touched up the music, and there's also the original soundtrack if you want it. So I feel like it would be an easy win.
Okay, so next up, these two will go by a little brief. Let's start with Fire Emblem.
Oh,
I have no say in this conversation. I have barely played Awakening.
It's very quick. But you know, this past year we had N-Gage, and I just wanted to point out that Fire Emblem games have been coming out at a relatively quick rate. You know, you had Three Houses in 2019. You had, further back you had Fates in 2015, Echoes in 2017, Three Hopes, that was 2022.
Yeah.
And then you had N-Gage this year. They come out at a pretty quick rate, so I wouldn't be surprised if going into 2025, our Fire Emblem game would be like a fall title. Can't speak for the next new installment of what that is, but I do think we're going to get a remake.
Yeah, I think the popular rumor is that it is a remake of Genealogy of the Holy War, which is FE4. I don't know if that's like fan copium or not, but like there was kind of like something about like the code names of the games, and
there is a feasible argument.
Yeah, to
because
be made.
I like Genealogy was like heavily associated with N-Gage when that was under development, and we saw leaked images and like rumors of like, oh, the protagonist is gonna have Joy-Con colored hair, and look what happened. So next up, if Jenny and Nutty didn't have anything to say on Fire Emblem.
My one last thing, just real quick. I do think,
houses.
Yeah, I was gonna say if they do make another like FE game so soon after Engage, it will probably be like the Koei Tecmo Three Houses team.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, probably not the Engage folks.
Give the next Fire Emblem Felicia and be the best game ever. That's I don't know. I've only played Fates and Awakening. So.
Actually, it'll be if they add Dorothea and Shamir. That is all. Kirby. I don't have waifus. What are you talking about? Kirby. How's cooking?
They always are. There's literally a new Kirby game every other direct, so like we can't say anything.
Yeah.
Because Kirby always has something coming
It has
out.
been, a little while since Forgotten Land.
I'm very sad about Return to Dreamland Studio.
Vampel.
Closing up shop. Yeah, I'm very sad about Vampel because I do think one of the things that could be surefire are ports and remasters of the 3DS duo. That is a must.
Yeah, and I think Vanpol had a lot of... they've been kind of like HAL's support studio for a while. So I feel like whatever the next big Kirby game is, it might actually be a while unless they find like another development partner to help out with it. So it is kind of a tricky situation for them. So I don't know. I don't know what to expect. They could probably fart out some spin-offs.
Okay, sure. Next up, this is going to be our next big 10-foot pole franchise to talk about, and that is Splatoon.
It's happening.
I'm not expecting 4 until the middle of the console's life, because 3 happened very late into the console's life.
I would be not surprised if somehow when the next system comes out, instead of doing Splatoon 4, they do like Splatoon 3, but then they do like adding additional stuff for Splatoon 3. So there's definitely a reason for that.
I know this term is rather charged, so I apologize, but do you think there's any chance they would turn Splatoon into a live service throughout this generation? Because I think that does pose an interesting question, because I feel like Nintendo, they tend to not support games for very long, other than, the stuff like Smash, but like I feel like there are a lot of Nintendo games where they kind of do like a 2-year support cycle and then they dip.
I wouldn't be surprised. I would be surprised if like they did Splatoon 3, like they changed Splatoon 3 up to become a live service one. Mm-hmm. But like I'm also in the boat of like I don't believe that Splatoon will ever get spin-offs. So
yeah, I wonder how much they can get people to pay for like $60 to $70 for like a new Splatoon new Splatoon with a new single player campaign, but also, like you're playing for kind of the same multiplayer with updates.
Mm-hmm. I definitely agree there, and I can definitely see like a lot of people are saying Splatoon 3 caught them off guard and no one was expecting that too. Like, and I agree there. Like maybe they could have held off on Splatoon 3. Maybe they just wanted it as like a last hurrah kind of dealio for the Switch. And now we pause and wait for both Jenny and Squire to return to the conversation.
Sorry about that. I'm very sorry. What did I miss? Sorry. So just catch me up to speed.
Do you think Splatoon will turn into a live service?
God, I hope not.
Yeah, I know it is kind of a charged word. And I think Nintendo is probably smart for like supporting games for just for a little bit. But I do wonder how long that they can continue to like pump out Splatoon sequels for $60.
I do think where Splatoon is now, to the point it's being marketed alongside the heavy franchises, I do think it's big enough now to warrant a spinoff.
Oh, yeah. I would play spinoff. I'm not a huge Splatoon person, but I think a spinoff would be really exciting.
I don't have too many ideas in terms of what a spinoff would entail, because, we've kind of yet to see that at this point.
Muso.
XCOM.
My 3 ideas were adventure, real-time strategy, and a skateboarder.
Oh God, like a Splatoon, like Tony Hawk game would actually...
Yeah.
That would be really sick.
Oh, I thought you said escape order. I'm like, what kind of genre is escape order? Like, what's
that?
A
skateboarder, yeah.
Yeah.
Splatoony Hawk.
Okay.
Splatoony Hawk.
Oh, that's good. That's real good. I love that.
But the IP I wanted to focus on, and this is a big one for all of us, is Xenoblade Chronicles. Now, I made a very big point, because she has not played 2 or 3. I'm not going to spoil...
She's played 2.
Oh, she has?
I played 2, yeah. 3 is the one that I haven't had a chance to get to yet.
Okay, so we're not going to spoil you on 3. So I've been patiently waiting for Xenoblade Warriors. That is the spin-off I've been dying for since Fire Emblem Warriors.
Yeah, I agree. 100%.
All I can say for like my opinions on this is like Xenoblade Warriors, it'd be cool. I think it's because 2. And then honestly, I just Monolith, give me whatever you're cooking. I'll take it.
Whatever they make, I'll play it. I will wait.
You're holding my wallet like the Pokemon company. Just give it to me. I'll buy it.
I think Xenoblade 4 is year 2. I'm gonna be real. Either
year 2
or
is
3.
optimistic. Yeah, I'm thinking more 3.
Late 2, mid 3, something of the sort. Now, I was copium about this, but I do hope, despite the direction the series is moving in, I do hope for a remaster or a continuation of X.
In my predictions, I put X for January 2025. So like a few months after launch, it's kind of like a nice meaty RPG to sink your teeth into. I think it's going to be a good while until we see a new Xenoblade. I can see them using an X remaster to gauge interest in continuing that sub-series, but yeah, I do think X will be coming.
Totally.
Yeah.
I also think like if X remaster happens, it's going to get a future connected situation.
Ooh, yeah, no.
Yeah.
Where it's going to
content.
try to take away the cliffhanger ending and try to give it like a proper conclusion so you can complete it without having to have that like have a sequel. And then honestly, just if anything, Monolith, without saying too much, Saga, there's just so much pointing at Saga remasters.
Oh, good lordy, it's coming.
There's so much pointing at those, so I can't say much, but there's a lot in
To
stuff.
continue on, Metroid. Just real quick, what we see of Prime 4, we've already seen a good amount with Prime Remastered. It's going to be very good. What I hope is Prime 4 is the second best Prime game. Because I do think Metroid Prime has such this legacy, and I do think it was good of them to go back and remake Prime 1, essentially, to get an idea of what makes that game special. But then, on the flip side, Mercury Steam's been a little quiet, but I can see them working on something new following Dread.
Dread was 2 years ago, right?
3 years.
Yeah, Dread was 21.
2021.
Before Samus Returns,
Oh,
they
Lord.
wanted to remake Fusion, so I could see them going back to that.
I totally think that's on the table. Either or, frankly.
I honestly hope they do Metroid 6 next. I think Fusion still plays perfectly fine. Like,
Super's gonna go insane, or not Super. Metroid 6 is gonna
yeah,
go
like
insane.
Metroid 6. Honestly, I could see Metroid 6 being like a 2025 title. Like, it's a 2D Metroid. It'll take time to develop, but 4 years seems pretty reasonable to me. And
Yeah.
it would be like, oh, 2024 we have Prime 4, and 2025 we have Metroid 6.
As someone who doesn't have any like any sense in Metroid, because unfortunately I'm not a Metroid player, if they made a Metroid like Fusion remake on Switch, what's stopping it from like checking if you have save data for Prime Remaster and being like, hey, here you go, the original version of Fusion?
Well, Fusion's already on NSO, so it would be a little redundant.
Like, because all I know is because the original version of Fusion, I think if you connect it to Prime, you got to play the original version of Metroid,
Yeah.
right? So, like, I think it'd just be a small little goofy thing, and not everyone has the expansion pass, so that's
Prime 4 could
just
do
my
something
opinion.
like that. They could do some cool connectivity stuff.
Yeah, so the final series I have listed before like an IP grab bag, that's when we can talk about like other smaller things that, what can we see about that. The last one I talked about, save the best for last, obviously, and I want to apologize, Super Smash Brothers. I'm apologizing because, let Ultimate rest, there's no rush to get to the next one, but, the first question a lot of casual people ask when a new Nintendo console launches is, where's Smash Bros?
You can't say let Ultimate rest when we're literally getting new Spirit events within this like this next coming month.
Damn it, you're right.
And Sora's Amiibo.
I think because like Bandai Namco has one or two like specific Nintendo support.
Two studios.
Yeah, like two Nintendo support studios. I really think like Ultimate just like they go into support mode and like that's just kind of it. I don't really think they'll
Online
do-
infrastructure.
Yeah.
Online infrastructure.
If they just like, hey, Ultimate remastered, like because if they do that like with rollback netcode or something, like, hey, that's all you need to do, because like Sakurai said, I think this doesn't happen again. What Ultimate is like that's it.
Sora could happen again. You never know. You never know. Sora might happen again.
We're gonna have a brawl situation where like it's probably like one of the bigger Smash games, but like a lot of the big ones are cut out kind of thing.
Yeah, if we get a new game, I definitely want them to like cut it down a bit and like
Reboot.
like cut some of the blow. Do like I kind of want them to like refresh some series. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
Fire Emblem, we all say that they need to redo that, but like Pokemon, you can cut out a lot of those ones and like mix up who the characters are. I think like even the third party rep, like I think it'd be cool if instead of bringing back the Belmonts, they did Alucard, or they do Ryu, but they also do Chun-Li. Like I kind of want that kind of stuff where they more so focus on the core essentials and maybe remix it a bit to feel fresh.
I think it should focus on the future, because like Ultimate, I feel like is like this is the peak, and we can't do it again. So let's just like bring the scope back in, and kind of go in a new direction.
Which unfortunately to all discussions means that all future discussions is like the peak can go higher. No, it can't. It legally cannot
At some
go
point,
higher.
the sky becomes space and you can't breathe.
Yeah, certainly.
Oddly deep. Okay.
What were you gonna say, Brandon? I'm sorry.
Oh, just that I don't mean this in a bad way, but my expectations are pretty low.
Yeah, no, I think the gap is going to be, like, longer than Melee to Brawl, which was 7 years. Our time between Wii U and 3DS and Ultimate was 4 years. Like, not counting, like, Bayonetta, Corrin, and Cloud dropping and all that. But I do think there are options to tide fans over before then. Like, we have backwards compatibility. There you go. Ultimate's playable on the next console. And like you said, we have those support teams. I'd be A-okay with an infrastructure update. Jumping ahead a little more, Smash 64 and then Melee and Brawl. Well, okay, maybe not Wii, but you have 64 and Melee for NSO.
64 easily.
Oh,
64, absolutely. And I guess, you know, I'm not going to spend too much time on it because it'll derail, but I do think in terms of, like, what I would expect, roster cut, absolutely. We have 89 characters. You can trim the filler, trim the all-star aspect, you know, like, everyone is here. Well, not Young Link or Pichu or Wolf for the next
Or
game.
Bowser Jr.
Or
Cut
Snake.
Get him out of there.
I'm not gonna get too big into this, even though I have this bias and I will defend how the representation is right now. I am really anticipating that Sonic shakeup. Give me Tails, give me Eggman, give me Shadow, and like if Sonic has a new moveset that's based on Frontiers, that's gonna go dummy.
I respect it.
I'm just sitting here in the pile preparing for Monolith to have 4 representatives, because Monolith is not losing any of its reps for Smash.
Absolutely.
And it's going to get 2 new ones with Noah and Mio, because
they
you
gotta
can't
do
have
both.
them
Yeah, gotta have both.
Yeah.
You can't have them by themselves, and you can't have them as one character like Pyre and Mithra. You've got to do
I don't
both.
see a world where they cut Xenoblade and the Smash community is happy that there are more anime sword fighters.
Well, see, Mio doesn't have a sword, so...
It's a bladed chakra. Shut up. Please don't, though. That was every big IP, but I do have a grab bag section, and this is essentially if there's any kind of IP that I didn't bring up or that wasn't really talked about, just, you know, like, quickly, like, give your take on it. It's a reason why I didn't talk about Animal Crossing and Pikmin, because
Animal Crossing. I think
their releases were more recent, and I didn't want to, like, jump the gun on those two after, like, New Horizons and 4.
Animal Crossing is like a given, because I think the one problem with New Horizons is I genuinely think that Nintendo was they're like, yeah, new Animal Crossing, but then, like, they weren't expecting the pandemic, and they're like, oh no, this is a lot bigger than we were expecting it to be. They did not expect it to be as big as it was.
I think Animal Crossing has started development. I think, like, since Side Order is probably going to be coming out within a few months, I think Animal Crossing has started development, and it will release in 2026, probably late 2026. 6-year gap between releases. I think they're going to really push this one after how huge New Horizons was unexpectedly. Yeah, I think 2026 that's all I have to say about Animal Crossing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Honestly, I think Animal Crossing is the only one that I can really think of that, like, we didn't really cover, but that's, like, go as far as I go.
I
so.
have a few to throw out. First one is Kid Icarus, because
Yes, please.
they're cooking.
I'm so coped. I'm copey.
Sakurai, you can't just say, man, it'd be really cool to play this on the Switch. You can't just say that. You can't just say that. You're playing with my heart.
That got me when he said that.
Especially because he knows that people take his word as, like, gospel, so, like...
Bandai
Come on,
Namco, or Bandai Namco remake of an action Nintendo game is apparently in development. So there,
Yeah.
Kid Icarus.
Just spat out my drink.
I want to say this because I'm going to be the only one to vouch for this. I want to bring up Star Fox. I'm on my knees. Listen, I would take a remake of Assault. That is my favorite Star Fox game. But the thing is, Miyamoto has, like, 2 switches. He's either in Pikmin mode and he's in Star Fox mode. But now he's got a movie mode, and now Star Fox is back in dormancy, and I'm sad. You know, it's not, like, one of my all-time favorites, but it's, like, a series I really like being associated with, like, Nintendo's All-Stars and all that. It's so cool. It just needs a refresh.
The only thing I have to add is that I feel like Nintendo just like shunts it around a bunch of different developers, so they don't really have like a vision for it. So I hope that they can get somebody to like advocate for it, because Miyamoto, yeah, like you said, like Star Fox has to share with Pikmin and movies now.
Yeah.
And theme parks. Don't forget theme parks.
Oh my god, theme parks, yeah.
What's that team that did those little like ship game? Ubisoft. What's
Starlink.
what was that game?
Starlink.
Yeah, I don't know what they're doing.
Give that to the Starlink team.
I liked Starlink, except the characters.
Give them the Star Fox stuff. That was really cool.
I have a lot of negative opinions on Ubisoft, but like Star Fox being in that game like made it worth it for me. I think it needs a refresh. I think you make it open space. Like Kingdom Hearts 3 has like gummy ship zones where you explore this very open field, but you still have like occasional on-rail shooter sections, I guess. And then, you know, like land from planet to planet, you have that more on-ground stuff that Assault has. Like have a mission per planet or something like that. Speaking of shakeups, real quick, F-Zero. 99 has shown that there's still a market for F-Zero, and I do think that could use a shakeup like Star Fox. If they have an idea to like give a nice refresh. You know, I think you could lean more into F-Zero's world, you know, its characters, you know. I always hear, like, the side action game, you know, Captain Falcon's a bounty hunter. I think that's cool. I think VR as a medium, we don't have to talk about Nintendo getting into that, but I can think of no better experience for both of those IPs than VR. You know, you have a game like that Star Wars VR game where you're piloting an X-Wing for Star Fox, but then F-Zero, you're in this very high, fast-paced racer.
Sure.
People get so motion sick from that.
Yeah, no, that is a detrimental thing to that. But that is everything I got. There's Nintendo Switch Online. I feel relatively confident that we're getting our NSO apps in some sense. And new apps would be no-brainers. Sonic Fan and Me... sorry.
I think they're gonna unify the NSO apps. I think they're gonna redo the NSO system with the new console. It'll be like Super Nintendo Switch Online or Switch Up Online.
Yeah.
It'll be like one unified app. Maybe it'll be like a slight price increase, but in return they'll add like Dreamcast games or.
You knew where I was going when I said Sonic. I have nearly every favorite game of all time for me on the Switch except Sonic Adventure 1 and 2, Kid Icarus Uprising. And Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Those are like... Oh, and you know, Pokemon Heart Gold, but that's neither here nor there. In terms of, like, apps you add to that, GameCube and then potentially Wii and DS. DS would be a little bit harder.
I was going to say DS, actually. I don't think GameCube, because they have so many GameCube remakes lately, I think there's not even that many left that haven't been redone. I think DS would be a curveball, because... At this point, most people have a Switch, so when they get a Switch 2, they're going to have two Switches. And you can just say, like, oh, you can connect them and play DS games on console mode, or you can just play it with one screen on handheld mode.
That's so cursed. I love it.
Or they could do it where you could use the... Because they've done this, like, with Galaxy, where you use the Joy-Cons gyro as a pointer.
Oh, yeah.
For, like, the touchscreen.
But
and
I guess
such.
moving on, Amiibo. I wanted to talk about Amiibo because next year's 10 years of Amiibo. I can't believe that. I do think next year is our final semi-final year of Amiibo.
I think Sora is the last
That would
one.
be fitting.
I don't agree, honestly. I think they're just going to keep making, like, 2 or 3 waves of Amiibo per year like they have been. And, like, I don't think they're going to stop. I just think it'll just be, like, like what it's been lately, where it's like, oh, it's throwing a cross promo.
It's a side thing.
Yeah, I'd be down with that. And I do think there are ways... that they could still continue it. One way I was thinking about why it could be that is I do think Nintendo wants to do more multimedia stuff. Like, you have more officially licensed Nintendo statues, figures, merchandise. Like, we see a bit of that still, but it's like, imagine shifting that up to 11. And I imagine, like, you know, a part of that could come down to, like, cutting costs on manufacturing Amiibo. Like, don't get me wrong, I love collecting Amiibo, even though it has some of its drawbacks, but I do think, you know, since its big high back in the Wii U era, it has definitely settled down. My second reasoning is I do think a good way to cut the cost for controllers is if they were to cut the NFC from that. They have done that before, where you can still use Amiibo without NFC. There's an NFC reader for old model 3DSs when they introduced that, but it's a long shot.
Yeah, I think that's possible. I don't think the NFC reader would take a that much tech for controllers, so I don't know if they would remove that specifically. Like, I just think it's such a like low tech thing to keep going that I don't see them getting rid of it. But it is possible though, because they have been winding down.
Okay, so my last thing before we get into closing thoughts is eShop. We're going to see a restructure of it of some sorts, and I do think what it needs is more categories and sorting options, just to get away for weekly shovelware to be shoved behind the wall, like, just shove all that under the rug or whatever.
I think that's a hard problem to solve. I think every digital storefront has shovelware, and it's just like, you just don't look at the new releases section. Like that's honestly.
I really wish they would at least find some quality control enough to get stuff rid of like the AAA clock, like 20 versions of that, because I just think that makes the entire storefront less legitimate. Like that kind of stuff is just
anime hentai 2 simulator or like that kind of stuff.
Like when it's stuff that's literally just like absolute garbage that took probably an hour for someone to make, I don't think that should be on there. And it's kind of sucks that there's no like zero restrictions on even that on the Switch eShop. I think they really need to work on that with the next console.
All right. Okay, we've made it. Wow.
2 hours.
Wow,
Yeah, this was longer than I apologize.
You said you were thinking an hour, and then I looked at the notes, and I'm like, there's no way we're going to do this in an hour.
I apologize. So my last 4 things are just questions. We can go through these quickly, of course, but my first one is, I am excited for this, but in the back of my mind, especially if they want to keep the branding, how successful do you reckon the console will be if it's coming off of the Switch?
Ooh, that's a...
Depending on how it goes in the scenario is depending on how they market it and why you should get it over. We could have a Wii U situation again. Unfortunately, it's possible that could happen again. It's just what they have to do, and I'm pretty sure Nintendo's pretty clear that they need to not do the Wii U again. They need to make sure people know why it's different, instead of having that commercial being like, this is why it's different from a Wii. So
we already have a Wii U, sweetie.
I'm not honestly worried at all. Like, I think even if it's like the most mediocre thing ever, it'll still do decent. It might be more of like a DS or 3DS jump if it's not a good console, but I don't think it's going to be a bad console though. I feel like people are always like, oh, Nintendo always does what nobody expects, but I don't think they're that stupid where they would do something that would completely shoot them in the foot again, like remove backwards compatibility or something along those lines where it would just completely kill the momentum of a new console. No, they're not stupid. I think it's going to be like, I think they're going to be smart about it, and it'll do well.
We live in a different world than we did when the Wii U came out, and like as kind of like, you know, Ginny was kind of joking, but she was also right. Like the PS5 has like 3 exclusives, but it is also like, you know, one of the best selling consoles, just from sheer momentum. Like, because the PS4 was good. That's why people are buying the PS5, because they want to continue to play new games and to play their old games like on the new hardware. So I think because we live in a world where we have like these established digital libraries, like that alone is probably why people are going to buy like a Switch successor. So as long as like they don't cut that off, which, you know, I think the fact that we're worried about that says a lot, but I think like you can get away with just making a better Switch, and like that will sell 90% of people, I think.
Yeah. Now, before we sign off, just one last quick thing. What were some of your favorite memories with the Switch? Just anything.
I have a good one, actually.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Brian. I think my biggest standout memory with the Switch was actually like how I bought one. Because the Switch came out like basically right at the start of like my career in localizing manga. Like I think that was actually like March, maybe April 2017, was when I started localizing manga. And around the time Mario Odyssey came out was like my second ever paycheck for localizing manga. And I didn't have a Switch yet. But so like with my second ever paycheck, around like October 2017, I didn't have a car, I didn't have a driver's license or anything. So I straight up walked like, I want to say 3 or 4 miles to my nearest GameStop to pick one up, and then walked back with it.
Lord.
And just because I had nothing but free time, because I was only doing like a couple of books at that point. So just like that really stuck out to me as sort of like, okay, I'm coming into the next generation now. It is sort of like, I associate it the Switch very strongly with like where I am in life right now because of where I was in life in 2017. So I hold that in very high regard.
Yours is way better than mine. Mine's just that I was like waiting in line all day to get the Switch on the day it came out. It was like I remember playing my 3DS. I'm just like, it's so unfair that I'm sitting in a line for like 6 hours because I want to be the first one to get it. And the thing I'm going to get at the end of this is something I could be doing right now by playing a game in handheld mode, but I can't because I'm waiting in line to get it. And I just like getting home and like playing the beginning of Breath of the Wild. Like it's just such a like iconic console launch to me. I don't think any other console launch has come close or ever will come close to that feeling of being that age at that time playing that one game.
For sure.
Yeah. Oh,
Absolutely.
I think a lot of our like best memories of the Switch is actually getting our Switches.
Yeah.
Like,
No,
I can at least
absolutely.
I can go back to on March 3rd. I was like maybe one of maybe two people in that GameStop not buying a Switch or Breath of the Wild. Like I looked at them and I'm just like, yeah, I'm here for Breath of the Wild on the Wii U. Because I didn't have the money at the time to get a Switch, and I didn't get it till June that year. But it was funny because like I remember specifically that day where like I asked for the Wii U copy, and the person looked at me like I had 5 heads, and like they pulled the box that they hadn't opened yet of Wii U copies of the game,
my
and like
God.
opened it and pulled it out because like no one had pre-ordered the Wii U copy either, and like
That's
but
actually
with-
incredible. Wow.
it was, well, who owns a Wii U?
I'm very sorry about that shade.
But like when I got my Switch, I remember it was it's the first console because of my age and just how I was growing up, the first console I ever bought myself was my Switch. Like it's the money I saved for myself. And like I had my Wii U as a gift from friends, and I could have bought one myself, but like I bought the Switch myself, and when I placed that Best Buy order, I went to the Toys R Us that was like down the street from my house, and I bought a case, and I bought Splatoon 2, and I waited like 4 days with this game and a case for a console that had not arrived yet. So that was just funny that it just sat there and waited.
Yeah, it's like, I guess a lot of our best memories come from getting the console itself, but I think more so for me it was playing Breath of the Wild because I don't usually express this often, but Zelda is a formative series for me, and it's a beloved for me. And I was in a pretty down period. It was my senior year of high school, and I had just gotten off of my previous year being a downer. I lost my grandfather. I was in an emotional state of depression. Even though I was in a new drama department with new friends, I experienced a lot of different kind of emotions in terms of hurt. And I had my friends to keep me going, and like, if you're listening to this, thank you. Like, I'm very thankful for you guys and the impact that you've left on me. But, I had fears of repeating that year, and it left me in a state where I was very upset, very angry during the period of that upcoming musical. But when I got Breath of the Wild, it was that game that made me realize my worth as somebody who's not a principal actor is important still. It made me realize, like, even though I might not be in the limelight, I'm still valued and appreciated and respected by my friends and colleagues in that department. And the Champions showed me that tenfold. I saw a lot of aspects of the 4 Champions of Breath of the Wild in past performances that I did when I was in drama. And of course, like, moving forward, I'll never forget the fun I had with Xenoblade 2, week of my finals. I beat the game. My mind was collectively blown. Made me realize how much that series would mean to me. I shrieked and screamed. I fell to the ground watching Joker get revealed at the Game Awards.
Oh, man.
Waiting for Ultimate.
That's a good one.
I dog sat while playing Xenoblade 3. I was up at 5 in the morning watching. Never mind. Jenny's here. I'm not going to talk about that. Stopped myself there.
I mean, and playing the original Xenoblade Chronicles finally is like it was a good one for me. Like finally finishing that game.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know exactly what I was talking about with that, Steven and Brandon. I know you do.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I think with the Switch as well, it's the first time I was very much in a console generation where I was alongside a lot of like Nintendo fans.
Yeah, and like kind of keeping up with things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I had my 3DS and I had my Wii U around the time that they were still pretty. I had my Wii U when Smash 4 Wii U came out, so like I was still in that kind of like area. But like I feel like the Switch is the first time I've ever been like from day one I had this console. From year one I had this console and like I was in the same news information.
100%, same for me.
I guess to cap this off, I guess my biggest memory was actually meeting you guys through this.
I was gonna say the same thing.
Oh, all right, you sap.
The Nintendo Switch. Nintendo Switch is the friends we made along the way. There we go.
Yeah, we did it.
All right,
We
you
did it.
saps beat me to it.
And with that is our discussion. I don't want to keep things going. I want you guys to plug, but Jenny, I also know you have to go. So like,
It's all right. Yeah, you can find me on YouTube at Jenny Geist Vids or Twitter at JennyGeist_, Patreon at Jenny Geist. I do YouTube video essays and stuff, talk about Nintendo sometimes.
I'm Steven. You can find me at Nuttyinks on Twitter, Instagram, and any of those other socials. I'm pretty the sense. My name should be in the description, probably, hopefully.
absolutely.
Oh, and I'm at Brandon Bovia on Twitter talking about anime, manga, games, and my job, which is the same sign-off I use on the One Piece podcast I do with Derek Bittner called One Piece at a Time, where we read 5 chapters of the One Piece manga each and every week. And yeah, I also localize manga. I mentioned stuff like Dragon Ball Super and Kaiju number 8 and like a billion other different things. So check me out. You know where to find me.
I'm a fan.
I just realized I didn't say what I do. I draw things. Follow me. Look at my dumb things about my OCs and maybe fan art sometimes.
All right. I'm glad to have got you, all my friends, on here for this discussion. This was a very lovely more than 2 hours.
Yeah.
Oops.
But of course, you lot, if you liked this video, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share this with others, as I find the feedback to be very helpful. That being said, thank you all for watching or listening. I've been the Squire, and be kind to one another.